The second Sunday of Easter. This sermon is based on the Gospel of John 20, verses 19 through 31. This is the story of Jesus appearing first to the disciples and apostles without Thomas, and then later with Thomas. And therefore, Thomas becomes a kind of icon, a kind of symbol, a metaphor for all those who will follow you and I, who were not able to spend our time on earth with the historical Jesus, or in this case, to see the risen Jesus the first time he appeared to the disciples. In this sermon, in this reading, we see that Jesus appears twice and gives us a chance to understand him in two different ways. Those who see him in the resurrected body first accept him immediately, but those who have not seen with their own natural eyes, Thomas represents them, are hesitant and even demand more proof than what they had when they had seen Jesus in his first appearance. Thomas says, unless I see the nails in his hands and probe them with my finger and see the wound in his side and stick my hand in his side. He wants to feel, touch. He wants that material connection before he believes. And I think for a lot of people that have been burned in the faith, who have been tricked and manipulated and hurt by their faith, no matter what religion, no matter what denomination, we have a hesitancy in our relationships with each other to enter again, to be vulnerable and to trust. And so Thomas was a person who is portrayed as very enthusiastic with Jesus in other gospels and other times earlier in his ministry. And with that enthusiasm, then he's all in. But then when his expectations have fallen, when Jesus gets arrested and crucified and dies, all of the expectations of the kingdom, of victory, of reinstatement of God's plan, God's world, falls. And Thomas is more than crestfallen. Thomas is hurt very deeply. So he is not going to quickly enter into trust with any faith relationship after this, let alone the Jesus who they all were convinced had died and some of them had seen with their own eyes and had buried him. So Thomas was not going to enter lightly into this next stage of faith relationship. For this, the old adage of once bitten, twice shy is certainly true for many of us, and all of us at one time or another have been in that situation where we have been burned, we have been manipulated, we have been tricked, we have been hurt and injured by another, or we have a perception that God has done this to us, that God has tricked us, let us down, our expectations were high, our dependence was on our idea of who God was, and then that's taken away. It becomes more than just an emotional injury. It becomes an injury of the soul. And Thomas, who deeply was involved in Jesus's relationship, was also had a mixture of his own fantasies about what Jesus should do, what Jesus was going to do, and how important it was going to be for him. And yet his fantasy did not meet the reality, and the reality did not meet his fantasy. And in that dystopian experience, in this sense where things are not aligned, and he is left with both the reality and the love and the hope and the connection with Jesus, and also the fact that his fantasies, his ideas, his expectations were mostly met but not completely met. And he was left with this disillusion. And in that disillusionment, he says what many of us either say to ourselves or to others: I'm not going to do it again. Sorry. I'm not stupid enough to be burned twice by the same set of expectations. So he says something very extreme: unless I put my finger in his wounds and a hand in his side, I will not believe. But in the end of the gospel, near verse 31, we see Jesus saying that blessed are those who did not see and yet have come to believe. Guess what? That's you and I. We have not seen with our natural eyes the historical Jesus. We have not walked with him. We had not shared a meal with him in a physical sense. We have believed because others have believed and passed down their faith to us, enough at least, until we have had our own personal experiences with Jesus to show us that what was said in the Bible, what was said by our ancestors of the faith, the generations that came before us, that passed the faith down to our family, to us, or to the parish community in which we entered, is truly real. This God, Jesus person, is real, not only back then, but right now, right here in my life. I've seen him work miracles in my life. Miracles of forgiveness, miracles of healing, miracles of peace, miracles of change in the world, miracles of hope, miracles of change in a person's life, in relationships. We have seen it work just like it works in the Bible, just like the faith of our forebears have told us, and we believed until we saw it for ourselves, and then we truly believed. Like Thomas, we say, my Lord and my God. Today, this is a big part of the gospel, the last part of the gospel, that we who have not been able to walk with Jesus in those days walk with him in faith now, and we are blessed. Now, we've been blessed, but we've also been sent. Jesus says in verse 22, peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, so I send you. When he said this, he breathed on them and said, receive the Holy Spirit. If you forgive the sins of any, they are forgiven. If you retain the sins of any, they are retained. So while we are freed and blessed, we are also given the responsibility to be sent into our world and to release others from sin, to have them know that there is forgiveness, there is grace, that they can be forgiven without paying the price. This is the grace of Jesus that he gives us, with no payment required, no repayment required. We are given a gift, and we can never, ever pay it back. So what are we left with? We're left with the thanksgiving in our heart and soul to carry on the work of salvation. That is the work of releasing people from sin. How can we do this? It's a supernatural thing. We cannot do it naturally. So we do it supernaturally through the Holy Spirit. And so he breathed on them and he gave them the Holy Spirit so that they could carry out this spiritual work. And this spiritual work is to release people, every person that wants to be released from their sin. We can pronounce God's forgiveness. And that is good news. It is also a responsibility that we as the Episcopal Church so often have hesitated in doing in a public manner. Our evangelism to go out into our relationships, into the world, even to strangers, and to tell them the good news of our heart, our experience, our faith, whether it be based in the Bible or based in our experience or a mixture of either. We know that we are sent, and we know that we've been given the power of the Holy Spirit to do his holy work. When we do not, his salvation work and kingdom suffers. And so the church suffers. I believe the church has been suffering for a long time in its hesitation to spread the gospel. In the hesitation, as John puts it in the gospel today, to forgive others' sins. This is our calling. We are both blessed and given a great commandment. A commandment to receive what is good for us, but also share what is good for the world. So let us do just that. Let us be sent into the world, being given the Holy Spirit to carry out this great calling, to forgive those who need and ask for God's forgiveness so that they may be released from their moral and spiritual prisons, so that they may be healed, so that they may find peace, so that they may find holy purpose. This indeed is God's calling to us. This indeed is our work too. May God bless you.